Atheist Nomads, episode 367, The Buddha's Story with Chris Matheson.
The podcast you're about to listen to includes cursing and talking about hoo-haws. Please be advised.
Welcome to another episode of Atheist Nomads. I am Dustin, and in a little bit I'll be joined by Chris Matheson. He'll be back for his third time. But before we get to that, on a personal note, I got the pop-up camper's roof rebuild finished. Got new lighting in there as well as nice wood ceiling, and got it all finished up and feeling pretty good about that. And we're going to be taking it out for its first camping trip. Lauren made an awning for it. We're using some hardware from the next door neighbor's awning that fell apart. So that's kind of cool too. And I finally got the propane system on board working again. Got a regulator for it, got that connected, and it didn't work. So I was like, okay, what's wrong here? Figured maybe there was a clog. So I tried blowing some compressed air through it and nothing. So I started dismantling everything, and I found I had to get out like 6 inches of dirt packed in there. Got it out, and now it works. Which means I can actually make coffee in the camper while warm, which will be nice. And so yeah, that's going to be really cool getting to go do that and getting to enjoy some outdoor adventures for the weekend while Lauren gets to do some rock hounding for Smoky Quartz. And yeah, really looking forward to it. Been trying to get back out there all year, or at least all summer, but this project just kept dragging on and on and on, and is finally done. One of the things this does mean for the podcast is my next project to get back to that's been on hold for a little bit because of a part that got lost during shipping, putting it all on hold, is the getting the live stream set up going better and doing that more often. So we got the stuff we need for the new camera that Lauren's been taking lots of awesome pictures with, but we'll also get to use for live streams on the podcast. That's from the stimulus money. So that's going to be pretty slick. Really looking forward to trying that out here in a couple weeks. So watch out for details. And one other thing I do want to talk about from some of this is stemming from a conversation with a friend who is a listener and supporter of the show. Schools. Yes, we are in the middle of a global pandemic, but when you look at the complexity of these issues, this is super, super complicated. And it's really a great example of why we need good, competent leadership that will actually listen to differing opinions and work it out to try to figure out what's best, weighing the different pressures. Because if you look at the stuff with schools, on the schools need to open side, there's parents need to be able to work. Most families, especially with kids in school, don't have a stay-at-home parent. And so parents need to work. I've seen some stuff on how this is already starting to lead to fewer women in the workforce than since the 1980s. As more and more moms are having to quit their jobs so they can take care of the kids, because it's a brutal pain in the ass to try to work at home while taking care of a kid. And yeah, Lauren's here taking care of Kylie, but I'm also working from home. And yeah, it's definitely harder to work from home when there's a kid running around. And I could only imagine how difficult that would be if you're the only parent there and you're trying to work from home all day, every day. Or both parents are working from home all day, every day, and you have to keep your kid on task doing schoolwork. That would be a brutal pain in the ass. Then when you look at additional stuff, a lot of the nutrition program, like Lauren just saw something today on Boise School District, 41% of the kids get free or reduced priced lunches. Some of them even get free hot breakfast at schools. A lot of those kids, that's where most of their nutrition comes from. And I know the schools here have been doing giveaways to kids so you can show up and get food from the school But that's also a difficult thing. And then there's issues with kids who get, there's higher risk of abuse when you add in the extra stresses of having to handle everything from home, and also just kids who are in abusive homes needing a place they can escape. So there's all of those pressures on getting the schools back open. And also just kids getting, from everything I've heard from kids doing online schooling for the end of last year, that was basically useless. And so the chance of losing all academic development and progress, and also losing social development, those are some huge, huge risks. But then on the other hand, if you look at like Cherokee County, Georgia, they've got 800 kids in their school district who are now on quarantine because of not requiring masks, and also a whole bunch of kids testing positive for COVID-19. There have been stories about teachers in summer school in Arizona where 3 teachers were stuck having to teach summer school in the same room. All 3 of them got COVID and 1 died. And when you consider that risk, yeah, there are teachers that are going to die of COVID this year because of having to teach in school. That is guaranteed. And so that is a definite competing demand. And how you rank those and weigh those and what's the answer, I don't know. We're seeing school districts across the country all coming up with different answers. And, okay, yeah, I would say Cherokee County schools in Georgia, that definitely looks like they did that one wrong. Full student class sizes and no masks, and yeah, that definitely looks like they're doing it wrong. But what's right? What's the right way to do it? It's usually obvious when it's done wrong, but there is no right way to handle it. It's what's the least bad. And the same thing's kind of true with lockdowns and the public health restrictions that are a complete patchwork across the country with huge amounts of variability depending on what state or county or city you're in. Which one's right and which one's wrong? There's risks and harms of every approach. And we know which ones are, but we know they're all bad, and it's easier to see which ones are more bad when you see the dead bodies. And this is just a very difficult time, and we need to be patient with the local leaders who are not getting sufficient guidance from state and national leadership. There should be a solid plan from the top down on how to handle this in a way that best balances all of the competing interests. We don't have that because Trump only cares about his own personal interests. So if we can try to be patient with the local people until we can get rid of Trump and get a sane new president who will actually listen to experts, we're stuck with this. And if you look at some of the new forecasts, it's not that it's going to be done this year, and it's probably not going to be done next year. This is something that will, if you look at coronaviruses, humans don't do a great job of developing immunity to them compared to most other viruses, which is one reason why you can get reinfected with the same. It's like there's 3 coronaviruses that are just part of the common cold. And you can get reinfected by those basically every year because the immunity doesn't last that long. And if that ends up working out with this one, then the chances of having wave after wave after wave until vaccines are out and to enough people to at least be able to hold off the next wave and hopefully shrink the next wave, that's going to take several years. And if you look at the vaccine projections, there are hopes that there will be good, viable, effective vaccines by the end of this year. And at best, about 2 billion doses by the end of next year. There are, 7.5 billion people in the world now. And the ones that are looking more promising require 2 doses and will probably need to be annual vaccinations. 2 billion a year. Let's hope that's enough doses for 2 billion patients and not just 2 billion doses, which would only cover 1 billion patients. Because, yeah, that's not going to stop the spread that much. That will keep huge pockets around the world. And there will be a new normal. And it's going to suck. We are going to need to figure out how to stay sane through this because we failed at stopping the virus. And again, it'd be great if we had some competent national leadership that could help with that. All right, well, that wraps up the rant. Let's go ahead and get on to the interview. We are now joined by Chris Matheson. This is his 3rd time on the podcast. First time was episode 115, second time was episode 251, and now on episode 367. So, like, a little over every 2.5 years, you seem to be putting out a new book.
Yeah, I think so. Every 2.5 years, I'm going to pop up denouncing one religion or another, Till I've just, worn them all out.
All right, so the first one came out in 2015, The Story of God.
Yeah.
Second one was 2018, The Trouble with God.
Mm-hmm.
And now we've got, and so we had Christianity and then Islam, and now, or excuse me, Islam, Mormonism, and Scientology. And,
yeah.
And now we've got Buddhism.
Right. That's my mission, Just shine a bright light on all of them. Kind of just reveal how ultimately fraudulent and laughable they are.
Right. And at this point, you've worked through Christianity, Islam, Mormonism, Scientology, and Buddhism.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a lot.
Watch out, Hinduism. Watch out, Hinduism. I'm coming for you, Hinduism. Yeah, I don't know. Probably not. Hinduism I've looked at a little bit, and I can't really seem to find anything that seems as ridiculous about it, superficially. But
I think with that one, you'd have to get a lot more specific into one of the sects of Hinduism.
Yeah. Or
the cult of a specific god.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. It seems to me that polytheism is not inherently as kind of obnoxious as monotheism, because that monotheistic thing of just like, no, this is it, this is it. This is the one truth. Everybody else was wrong. Because polytheism, there is room to just meet other people and go, Wow. What do you know? You've got gods too. Huh. Well, we all do. There's a bunch. It's not as bad.
Right. And
at least I think it's not as bad.
You don't worship their God. Big deal.
Right.
They don't worship yours. Everybody's fine.
Yeah, everybody's all right. It's like everybody can live with that, And then, so that move of like, no, there's really only one tree. You're all wrong. You're just wrong, and we're right. That's I find that very obnoxious.
Yeah. And so, when we last talked back in 2018, you were not quite sure what was going to be next. So how did you settle on Buddhism?
Well, there's only so many targets, I mean, really, we're joking about it, but there are only so many major world religions, there's 5 or 6 or something. So I enjoyed writing those God books. They were really fun. He I thought was a very, very funny comedic character. And, as a comedy writer, that's kind of what you look for, like a funny character that you can write. And then I played him out because there was nowhere I couldn't follow him any further, because the Book of Mormon is kind of his last big appearance on the world stage. I'm sure people, as we speak, are trying to bring him back now. Somebody right now is going, he's talking to me. He's talking to me. I have his new a new revelation from God. People are trying to do that all the time. They just fail. But I couldn't go any further with him. But I wanted to keep going with the religious thing. And I'd interacted with a few American Buddhists over the years, and I'd been not impressed, let's say. I thought they were really smug and kind of self-important and pleased, self-satisfied. And I didn't much I thought they were annoying. I interacted with a guy at a party once, and I remember him saying to me, imagine he was trying to pitch me on Buddhism, which seems idiotic, but he was like, imagine your life is like a non-stop orgasm. That's what your life is like. And I just remember, I thought, well, that just sounds horrible, really. Like, I mean, that sounds awful. Who would want that? And what a dumb thing to say. So I kind of had this little feeling inside that maybe there was something that I wasn't going to like too much about it.
Okay.
Anyway, I started reading about the Buddha, the life of the Buddha, and I just pretty quickly, because I just take notes, right? I got a bunch of books, because there's not like one book, like there's not the Bible. There's 100 books, and there's no one definitive text for Buddhism. But I read a bunch, and I just started, I just sit there with a red pen, basically, making, just kind of anytime I hit something that strikes me as funny, I just mark it. And I was marking up a lot. I was like, oh, this is really ridiculous. And he's a really ridiculous character. So there was that. Like, his story is laughable. They think that it makes him sound so amazing and so jaw-droppingly majestic, but it makes him sound kind of like an asshole for the most part, and a fake. So there was that, and then but I guess at a certain point, if the ideas, because there's those Buddhist ideas, right? And if I thought they were truly beautiful, I might have just held back. I might have just thought, well, the guy's kind of a jerk, but the ideas are beautiful. But I don't find them beautiful, actually. I don't think they are. I think they're actually just kind of as ugly and stupid and mean-spirited as the Western religions. And then there's just this feeling that, like, Buddhism's gotten a pass. Like, oh, Buddhism's the cool one. Buddhism's the cool kid in high school, like Buddhism's the one. You can be a cool person and still believe in it. And I didn't like that. I thought I don't buy that. So I wrote this book.
All right. And then for listeners who aren't all that familiar with the Buddha story, the super high level, like world religions version of it, like college class would be, he was a rich guy born in a noble family who decided to renounce earthly possessions and become a beggar. Yeah.
Essentially, he's a prince, and he's very, very, very really privileged, and he has everything that he wants. He's spoiled and indulged, in fact, and his father wants him to be a king, an earthly king, but he doesn't want him to know, for some reason. He thinks it's better for his son. This is their mythology. This is their story. He thinks it's better for his son to not know anything about pain. He doesn't want his son to know that there's any suffering. He doesn't want his son to know that there's any pain. He doesn't want him to know there's sickness. He certainly doesn't want him to know there's aging, and he absolutely doesn't want him to know there's death. So he shields him from all that, so that he lives in this very pampered kind of cloistered life where only young people, I guess, work there. And if anything gets sick, anybody gets sick, they're out, and nobody's allowed to get old. And somehow, as they tell the story, he's so dense, I guess, that he doesn't even grasp. He's 30 years old, 30, and he doesn't grasp that there's any pain or aging or sickness or death. And then he gets these little intimations, like, when he's a kid, he gets this, and he sees a bird picking up a worm, and he goes, "Oh my God, the worm, that's bad. The worm's going to die. Oh my God. Does that mean everything dies?" So he gets these little kind of glimpses, but it doesn't really coalesce until he's 30. And by that point, he's married. And he has a kid. He has a newborn son. His son, Rahula, who is named Rahula. Rahula means shackle. He names his son Shackle because he knows that that's what his son is going to be on him, a shackle for life. And he renounces that. I will not be shackled. I will not be shackled by anyone. So he walks away. And by this point, by the way, he's had his big epiphany. He got his chariot driver to drive him around the village near outside the palace. And on that drive, he sees an old person, he sees a sick person, he sees a corpse. And of course, his mind is blown because he doesn't know any of this exists. So he's completely shocked and horrified. And then he sees an ascetic, a beggar, sitting by the side of the road, kind of, looking very calm and at peace. And he thinks, well, I'm going to be that. So he basically just walks out, and they sort of romanticize this, like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. He's so committed to the truth that he just walks away from his wife and his newborn son. And of course, I read that, and I'm a dad, you're a dad. It's just like, oh my God, that's horrible.
He's a deadbeat.
It's like he's got a newborn son, and who he named Shackle. And he's like, I won't be shackled. And he just walks away, and he goes to live in the woods. And then it takes him like a number of years, I think it's like 5-6 years, before he kind of figures out his big idea, big idea. And this is Buddhism in a nutshell. This is the college course, like, quick version of Buddhism. Life is suffering. That's it. Life is suffering. Life is pain. But this is his big epiphany. This is his big realization. You can escape the pain. The pain can be escaped. How do you escape the pain? You stop wanting the pain. You cut yourself off from anything that you might want. So consequently, you don't, you didn't like love and marriage and children. Like, no. No, that's bad. Also, it's bad to have children because the goal of life is a cessation of pain. because life is pain, the only valid goal, long term, is to not exist, is for life to cease to exist. So every time you bring a kid into the world, of course, you're just essentially creating more pain. Given that life is pain, you shouldn't bring children into the world. That's a very bad thing to do. You should just kind of strive to not feel for anyone or anything, not want anything at all. And then you can reach extinction, which is the goal. So apparently some people think there's something beautiful about that. I don't.
That's like,
I think it's nihilistic and grotesque.
Absolutely. That is, you can't get more negative about life in the world.
You cannot. You cannot. And how people see beauty in this, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't agree with the starting point that life is pain. I don't accept that. Yeah, there's pain in life. Of course there is. Of course there is. But life is pain? No. I mean, that's so reductionist. I mean, it's so crude. I mean, and stunted. Maybe for him. No, life's beautiful. Life's wonderful. Life's amazing. Life's filled with joyful things, as anyone who's ever had children knows. And they hate the body. Oh my God, the body's awful. The body's just like a sewer. It's just a cesspool. It's just a stinking, rotten mess. And you just want to escape it. You just want to escape all this. And then the funny thing is, and you're going to keep coming back, right? Because it's all reincarnation. Reincarnation's built into it. And they're all bad. There's nothing you can come back as that's going to be any good. It's all bad. You come back as an animal. Oh no, that's terrible. Terrible to be an animal. You come back as a demigod, whatever that is. It's a funny little category because it's hard to even say what it is. That's bad. You come back as a god, because sometimes you can come back as a god. That's bad. That's bad. Because as a god, you're just going to slowly deteriorate. You're not going to stay godlike. And then eventually you're just going to be like a bum dressed in rags, walking around like I used to be a god. And then there's, and people think that Buddhism is, compassion, right? It's compassion. You can't believe how ugly and horrible their versions of hell are. And it's not just one. Like Christianity has got, fire and brimstone and, demons, and I guess stuff like that. But I don't even know that that's really in the Bible. It's not. I mean, that's more like John Milton or something who creates that. But in Buddhism, oh my God, they're the most sadistic versions of hell you can hear, where you just like slowly sliced to pieces with razors, and then they reconstitute you and then re-slice you again, and then you're just climbing up a tree that's made of sharp knives, and you're being dipped in. I mean, they're brutal, and they're one after another, and they're all terrible. So it's all fraudulent. It's really ugly, this thing, and dumb.
So you keep being reborn into suffering,
and
you can either move up into slightly less disgusting of suffering, or move down to even more disgusting of suffering, until eventually you either get so far down that you get tormented forever, or you get so great that you just disappear.
Yeah, you cease to exist. That's the goal. The goal is don't exist. That's the goal. And don't love anyone. Don't connect with anyone. Love is a trap. Women, it's all from a male standpoint. Of course, it's as misogynistic as any of the major religions, and they all are. Women are a trap because women want to have children. And they'll try and seduce a man into giving them a child, which just perpetuates this horrible cycle of existence. So stay away from women. Oh my God, stay away from women. They're terrible. They shouldn't really be any part of this system, feel nothing.
Well, and any time you've got a system where existence is the negative,
Yeah.
the fact that women can have children will always make them worse. Or worse than worse.
Well, yeah, because they're the vehicles through which it all continues, right? I mean, he says to his followers, a woman is more dangerous than the most dangerous snake. You'd be better off putting your penis inside a hot, fire than inside a woman, because the hot fire will burn your penis off, but a woman will destroy your entire existence. I mean, it's just terrible. It's terrible, terrible, terrible. And it's perceived to be something it's just not. And it's almost like the persona, like the Buddha images, right? And he always has that kind of calm, beatified smile on his face. But it's bullshit. It's really ugly, and it's really mean-spirited, and it's really stunted. And it's really, really fraudulent, because, another core tenet of Buddhism is like, well, no ego, right? No ego. Escape your own ego. But the whole thing is about this guy's monumental ego, his huge ego. He names himself Perfect One. Perfect One. That's what his followers are supposed to call him, Tathagata. Tathagata means Perfect One. Now, and he's not saying that, according to him, because he has any ego, because he doesn't have any ego, according to him. Right. It's just simply the truth. He is perfect. Therefore, that's what they should call him. Okay, now, how anyone can take that seriously is just, beyond my comprehension. How you take that seriously?
Oh man, and because there are some statements in the gospel that are kind of similar.
Yeah,
and Christians view Jesus as the most humble human to have ever existed.
Yeah, which he's not.
Which obviously no, he's not.
No, he's not. Not on the page. No, he's very interested in talking about himself. In fact, I would say the main thing he wants to talk about is himself. He mainly wants to ask, who do you think I am? What do you think I am? What do you, he loves that. He loves talking about that. And all right, here's a little advice here and there. But mainly, he's very, but he's nothing compared to his dad on the page. Oh my God, his dad is just, God, that is just obsessed with himself, endlessly obsessed with himself. Yeah, it's all this ego crap. It's all this ego crap that's just cloaked. If you see through this stuff, if you don't buy it, it's just not that hard to see the kind of ego at the center of it.
Yeah. Well, and at least from people I've seen who call themselves Buddhist, who are as white as I am, they have a tendency they like meditating, and they like to seem cool by being able to say there's something that's not mainstream.
Oh, of course. They think they're cool.
The hipster approach.
Yeah, totally. And okay, meditation. I don't know, whatever. What is it? You sit, you close your eyes. Now I'm going to say, somebody's going to say, you're an ignoramus who doesn't know anything. You're an idiot. What is it really? You sit and you close your eye. Maybe you don't even have to close your eyes. You sit and you focus on your breathing. And that's it. That's what you're doing. Mm-hmm. Okay, whatever. All right, maybe. Apparently it does something for people. I'm not going to say it's just inherently useless, because people do all kinds of stuff. But that lays at the center of it. And it also I don't know. I'm just not sure about that one. Like, clear your mind, or, get to something, get past your skittering thoughts and to something slower and deeper. I don't know. Maybe. I think there's probably a lot of ways to do that than just sitting. The thing, this is what I think it is. It's so, historically, what they've been criticized for is being kind of navel gazing, let's say, right? It's so internal. You just sit there by yourself. It's very much like, you're just doing this thing yourself. You're really not in, right? You don't meditate with other you could, other people could be present, but it's just very much self-involved. It's very self-involved. I don't know. I don't see anything in it. I've tried it myself, and of course it didn't work for me because my brain doesn't work that way. But if I go out on a long hike in nature, I feel all kinds of stuff. I feel all kinds of clarity. I feel all kinds of, things drop off, and there's some simpler, deeper things. I feel them anyway. I don't know them, but I feel them. So I think there are ways to get to deeper parts of ourselves.
Oh, I've
and if sitting by yourself and breathing is it, well, all right, yeah.
I have found meditation can be useful for relaxing or trying to reduce anxiety a little bit.
Yeah, I believe that's probably
okay. Yeah, great for calming yourself down, because sitting and trying to clear your mind will calm you down.
Right.
That's a huge difference from trying to empty yourself of desire.
Yeah, right. And like, it's just their starting point. Almost like that. He doesn't even really try to defend this. It's so self-evident, I guess, to him. Like, why do you just assume that desire is a bad thing? Why is that just such an obvious starting point? We have desire. We want food. Yeah, we want sex. Yeah, we want we'd like to get a certain maybe level of, accomplishment or something, or respect from our peers, or whatever it might be. Why are those inherently bad things? It's like we would seem to be kind of made that way. So it seems to be implying there's just like, well, they're just bugs in the system. That's just bad, and we should just turn them off if we possibly can. But there's tremendous pleasure to be had in going after those things and sometimes getting them, rather than like, well, you'll never get them. And even if you get them, you'll only be tormented by the fear of losing them. So don't want them, don't want anything, don't connect with anything, just, go extinct.
And if his starting point was seeing ascetics who were begging on the streets as the only ones who weren't suffering, he wasn't paying close attention.
Yeah, he puts himself through hell for about 6 years, where he's like, I've been pampered, right? And I've had everything I wanted, and now I'm gonna. Did you? Yeah, you're probably too young for this, but there. When I was a kid, there were comic books. A character named Richie Rich. Did you ever hear of Richie Rich? Macaulay Culkin actually made a movie called Richie Rich. He's the poor little rich boy.
Never read.
Richie Rich is the poor little rich boy. He's like the richest little boy on earth. You couldn't do it now, because now people would be like, "Oh my God, that is so off key," But Richie Rich was the poor little rich boy, and he's the richest little boy in the world. And he's horrible. He's just insufferable. You just can't stand him. He's just this pampered little boy in his little shorts and a little bow tie. You just want to see him get attacked by wolves or something. He's just gross. But that's, the Buddha's kind of Richie Rich. And then he's like, I have to renounce all that. So he goes and he starves himself so much that is like his hair is falling out, and he's skin and bones, and sometimes he eats rocks, sometimes he eats his own shit, sometimes he's like trying to eat air. I mean, he's just wasting away to nothingness. And then another one of his realizations is like, well, don't do that. Don't starve yourself to death. Just eat enough to stay alive. So that's kind of what he comes to, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not what people think. It's not what people think. And whether there's much of a, I mean, I'm me, right? And I'm just I have a satiric bent, let's say, and I like to make fun of stuff, especially stuff that I perceive as pompous and overblown. Mm-hmm. And I do perceive this as pompous and overblown. And is there an appetite in the world to kind of put Buddhism in its place and mock it? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. And at this moment, given how hot and fretful and worrisome everything is, maybe something that's like, no, you can calm down, you can meditate and cool off. Maybe that's really appealing, and I'm just sort of barking up the wrong tree. I don't know yet. I could see that happening, but it's not what people think.
Right?
It's really not.
It's not meditating to try to be 10% happier. There's an app called that. 10% happier, promoting meditation. There's not just trying to calm yourself down or help you manage stress. It's meditate instead of doing work.
Well, there is that. Yeah. I mean, really, what is proper work for a Buddhist monk? Beg.
Yeah.
Beg. That's it. That's what you do. I mean, the other people, the non-Buddhist monks, the householders, as he calls them, they can do other work. I mean, another thing about Buddhism that just strikes me as absolutely ludicrous, and when I bumped into this, I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding, which is a reaction I often have when I read religious books. Like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding. This can't be for real. But so it's like, this is so simple. That's how it's presented. This is so simple. Life is pain. Life is pain, but you can escape the pain. And and you can escape the pain by, essentially not wanting anything. So that's not so easy. How do you not want things? So then we get to the really like where the rubber meets the road. How do we do this? And what has been presented as very simple and straightforward suddenly gets like absolutely impossible, because it's like the list of things: perfect behavior, perfect actions, perfect work, perfect discipline, perfect, just be perfect. And so I read that and I think, who the hell is this for? Like, who can do this? Who is like this? Nobody. There's a letter. I wish I could remember which letter it was, but there's a letter from Paul to one of the, I don't know, the Corinthians or something, where he basically lays out how to live a good life. Mm-hmm. And it's the most ludicrously bad life advice I think I've ever read. It's like, be perfect all the time, be happy all the time, don't ever have a bad thought, don't ever have a negative thought. It's like, this is so dumb. I mean, like, have you ever met another human being? Have you ever introspected for a moment? I mean, like, it's not realistic. You're just going to make people incredibly guilty and ashamed. Maybe that's the point. I don't know. But it's like, I would say on that level, they're just bad advice. They're just flat out, this is bad advice for how to live on planet Earth. This is bad advice how to live a human life on planet Earth, and Buddhism just as much. Like, nobody can do this.
But they were able to create a system that can be perpetuated by monks who at least appear to be what everybody is supposed to be aspiring to be, And if they
That
just
is true.
give them some rice, then they've done their part.
Yeah, and it has this idea in it. You know what a bodhisattva is, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is one of the most insufferable notions. One of it's like a lure for insufferable people, let's say. Like that, the temptation, because a bodhisattva is someone who has no needs.
Mm-hmm.
A bodhisattva is someone who's almost done. You're almost ready to go extinct. In fact, you're good enough. You could go extinct now if you wanted to. But you know what? You just go back to help other people. You don't have any needs. You don't have any desires. You require nothing. You are there only to help others. Okay, this is it's not dangerous necessarily, but it's annoying, right? Because there are people who think of themselves as bodhisattvas. And it just is a recipe to make the most annoying asshole imaginable, Because it's like, I'm here only to do good. I'm here only to help others. It's like, well, you're not. No, you're not. You've revealed what you're here for. You're here because your ego is voraciously hungry, and it's opposed. So I find that obnoxious too. I don't like that.
Yeah. Well, and monks of any stripe, because definitely applies with Catholic monks as well. You hole up and either go out and actively beg, or make sure that you're otherwise a leech on society, so that you can be the more religious person.
Yeah, right. So that you can be all sanctimonious and literally holier than thou. You are that. Yeah. No, it's insufferable. It's really obnoxious. These are obnoxious human beings. They just are. They're obnoxious people. It's an obnoxious move to make. You don't have any special contact with God. If non-believers like us are like, yeah, there's nobody to have a special contact with, right? There's nobody there. You guys are just talking to yourselves. But let's just say there was, right? Let's just say for the sake of argument, somehow there's somebody there. Why do you think you have any more of a relationship with them than anybody else? Why do you think that? Why would you? Why should you? You don't.
Yeah. Yeah. And with the ideal of a Buddhist monk, you've got a single robe and a single bowl. And that's it.
Yeah, right.
Because you're so in touch with the universe or gods or Buddhas, depending on the flavor of Buddhism.
Yeah. Right. You're so holy. You're so spiritually evolved that your needs are negligible. All you need is just, your robe and your bowl. And that's it. And then other than that, you just kind of meditate. And, and then I think probably a lot of them do think of themselves as bodhisattvas.
Yeah.
I'm here only for others. Like, oh, shut up. No, you're not. Oh, stop it. God. Just stop it.
Oh, man. All right. So was Buddha as fun to write as the Christian, the monotheistic God?
It's different. I would say ultimately not quite, because what makes the Christian God really interesting, I found, as I kind of just, dug into the character and dug into the story, is this lurking sense of self-hatred and the constant punishing and the sense of shame at the center of it. This bizarre sense of shame, and he can seem, the Christian God that is, like a madman, like a lunatic, and like the cruelest character ever created by far. But he can seem very tormented and forlorn and weirdly pathetic. And I got to the point with that character where I thought, wow, damn, what a hellish plight. What a horrible job, actually. You're just all alone eternally. And you don't have anything. You don't have a mother. You don't have a father. You don't have siblings. You don't have any friends. You have an enemy, and you have a son who you brutally murder. And then you got a bunch of sycophants who are just constantly telling you, how amazing you are, and you don't believe them. And that's what you have. And so there's a darkness and a misery to that character that I found quite fascinating. The Buddha is just a smug dick from beginning to end. So the pain in the Buddha story is the pain he causes others. Now he does. The pain he causes his wife, I felt had some weight to it. The pain he causes his son had some weight to it. The pain he causes his little sidekick, his little kind of Sancho Panza character, is a guy named Ananda, I felt was real. The pain he causes his stepmother. So he causes a lot of pain. But given that it's written first person, the book is written for, it's I am the Buddha, and here's my story. That's how I wrote it. And I thought it was funny. I thought he was really funny. I thought it was equally funny. I didn't think it had the same pain built into the central character. And that made it different.
Yeah. The sociopath versus the monster.
Narcissist, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, they're both narcissists, but God's a sociopath. Yeah, absolutely. He's a homicidal. He's deranged, kind of. There's something wrong with him from the get-go, if you take it at face value, because you're like, you're all powerful. You're omnipotent. Why on earth did you let Satan sneak in at the very beginning and screw the whole thing up by why did you allow that? And if you take it at face value and you go, well, he's all powerful, then he wanted it to go that way. Mm-hmm. He wanted pain. He wanted suffering, and relishes it, and is kind of there's an S&M quality to the whole thing, I guess. It's very, very strange. And the Buddha, by comparison, is a kind of a fatuous lightweight, I would say.
Yeah, just a narcissist who doesn't care who he hurts.
No, he really doesn't. Oh my God, he really doesn't. And the bizarre thing is these stories are told as if he's the hero. There are a number of stories that he just says the most brutally unkind things to his son and to his best friend, his sidekick. I mean, the most just cut somebody's heart out kind of things. Telling stories and using past lives to kind of, make a point, because he's always going to his past lives, in which obviously he's this amazing heroic figure in every single one of them. But the cruelty of him, of the Buddha, is just staggering, and it's really casual. I guess I would say, like, God is cruel. He's really cruel, but he knows it, and he wants to be. He wants to hurt. He wants to hurt. He's in pain. My interpretation of him would be, for whatever reasons, and I inferred my own stuff, he's in a tremendous amount of pain. And so he lashes out and he wants to hurt us because we're made in his image. He's hurting himself. The Buddha doesn't seem to be in pain. He's very smug. He's very self-satisfied from beginning to end. But he causes, oh my God, he causes such a lot of pain. And what an idea, right? Now, did that idea exist before him? I'm sure it did. And it's not, it's been around. Like Stoicism is a kind of a, Stoicism and Buddhism have a lot in common in certain ways.
And Buddhism's probably older.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is
100 or 200 years.
Or maybe even more. I think Stoicism starts right around, 100 BCE maybe, or it's right around in there.
The early Stoics were more 400 or 500 BC. And,
is that true? Is it that far? Is it that old? Oh, wow.
Yeah, around 400, I think.
Who is? Do you know? Is that like Is it like Seneca? Because it's like, I know it gets really big in Rome, or is it Epictetus? I don't really know the chronology. I didn't realize
it was right after Plato and Aristotle.
Are you looking it up?
No, I'm not. I'm
Oh, okay. I thought you were Googling it as we spoke.
No, I did some digging into like the relationship of, like, I tried to put together a family tree of all the world religions.
Oh, cool.
And
I like that.
Graph it out by the years.
Uh-huh.
And it was shocking how old all of the Indian religions are.
Oh, like much older, right? Like Hinduism goes back way. It predates Judaism, even, right?
Hinduism predates everything. It's
right.
Just because Hinduism is paganism. Everything was paganism until something else came out of that, and Hinduism still just is. So there is no start to it.
Right.
And like,
as far as right.
And Buddhism predates the Greek Golden Age, where the philosophers were coming up with all these ideas to make Greek society an enlightened form of paganism, as they would have put it. And
so Buddhism predates Stoicism by some number of years, a century or two.
Centuries, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Where was I? don't even remember what we were talking about with Buddhism.
But yeah, these would have been ideas that other people would have had too. Oh,
yeah, right. He borrows a lot. Also, the Buddha, he grows up, he's Hindu, and a lot of his idea, because Buddhism has the same relationship to Hinduism that Christianity has to Judaism. It grows out of it. A lot of his ideas are borrowed or taken from Hinduism, like karma, for instance. That's not unoriginal. I don't think meditation is. That's not his. That predates him by a lot. I don't think reincarnation is his. What's really his, and this is, ego, this is the Buddha's ego again, is like, I love this. He actually, he says all those Hindu gods exist. They're all real, they're all real. That's all true. But they all essentially work for him. They all call him sir. They all kind of like defer to him. He trumps them all, which I think is just such a hilariously audacious thing to do.
Yeah, that would have been, like, for that time and place, that would have been the single most arrogant thing a human being could have possibly said.
On the basis of reading all this stuff, I would put him on a short list for the single most arrogant human being who's ever walked the planet. And I don't know who else I would put on the list, frankly. He is jaw-droppingly arrogant, this man. Yeah, it's just breathtaking. And then that it's supposedly about, lack of ego. Don't, like, get away from your ego. It's like, you've got to be kidding. This is like the most spectacularly ironic thing imaginable.
Well, but the most arrogant people believe they are that good. And don't recognize it as arrogance.
Yeah, it's not arrogance, right? Of course, call me perfect one. Not because I'm arrogant, just like because it's the truth. That's all. I mean, I am perfect. I didn't die, It's just how it is. That's just how it is. He'll go through these, or they will. Are they, to what degree are they quoting him? To what degree are they mythologizing him? Who knows? We don't really know. I think you can definitely feel this man's ego. He will just hold forth on his physical perfection, just what a perfect body he had, what a perfect face he had, how he was the greatest and the most brilliant. He could, figure out any mathematical problem in his head in a split second. He was the greatest athlete. He was everything. You name it. He's it. It is. Yeah, it's this astounding arrogance. But kind of interesting. I found this in the Book of Mormon. Have you ever read the Book of Mormon?
I actually haven't. No.
Oh, well, it's hard to say you should because it's not a good book. He's a very bad writer, I would say, Smith. He's not a good writer, but it has its moments, not of quality, but it's fascinating in its way, because it's so ballsy what he's doing. You just can't believe what he's doing. He's like, oh my God, he's having Jesus talk about him. Like Jesus talks about Joseph Smith, a man will come and will do. It's so audacious. It's fantastically funny. But these guys, these arrogant guys, they will plant a villain in their own story who will challenge them and question them. It's like some other part of them is like, it's almost like some defense, or it's not a defense. It's sort of like they can't help it. Like somehow there's another part of them that emerges that will challenge them and question them. And of course, that's Satan. And in the Book of Mormon, I forget the guy's name, but the Antichrist shows up. He shows up a number of times, but he shows up and he denounces the entire thing. And honestly, it's the best thing in the whole book. He levels it. He absolutely levels it. And he does it pretty well. And the idea of Joseph Smith writing this thing is really fantastically interesting. And the Buddha has one of those too. He has either a cousin or a brother-in-law or something named Devadatta. And there are many, many, many Devadatta stories. And Devadatta is the villain of the story. And Devadatta doubts the Buddha. Devadatta questions the Buddha. Devadatta says the stuff you're not supposed to say. And of course, he ends up having an absolutely horrible. Of course, he's doing. Why is he doing it? Oh, because he's so jealous of the Buddha. What else, right? He's so jealous of the Buddha, and he gets a horrible, brutal death, and everything you'd expect. But he goes after him, and I find those characters really interesting.
Yeah.
The Satan character in the Buddha story is hilariously feeble. He's the lamest devil you could ever imagine. His name's Mara. And Mara will periodically show up and just go, I will destroy you, Buddha. You will never succeed. He's like a villain in a melodrama or something. I will. And then the Buddha will just look at him and say, go away. And Mara will go, oh, foiled. and he'll just go away. That's it. Mara is the lamest I think he's and I've read a decent amount of this religious stuff now. He's the lamest devil I've come across. He's the lamest villain. And lame villains, oh my God, from a comedy standpoint, oh my God, lame villains are just so funny. They're so funny because they're just all blustery, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then they don't do anything. They're helpless. They're fantastic.
When I introduced you, I left off what's normally the main credit you get introduced with, and that is being co-creator of Bill and Ted.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got a new movie coming out.
Yeah, we do. We do. Bill and Ted Face the Music comes out August 28th.
That's just a couple weeks away.
Yes, it is.
So why did it take so long?
Well, we didn't even try for a long, long time. Like Bogus Journey came out in 91, and between 91 and 2007, it was just nothing, no activity at all. Maybe occasionally Ed and I would, say, well, what about this or what about that? But really it was inactive. And then in 2008, Ed and I must have had an idea that we thought was worth doing. So we contacted Alex and Keanu and we said, do you guys want to just talk about this? And we all had dinner together and we threw a few ideas out, and the guys were, obviously we couldn't even begin if Alex and Keanu weren't interested, right? I mean, there's been no point. I mean, we weren't going to do that. We knew that the only way forward is if the guys sort of liked the idea. So we had just a very general notion in 2008, which was a starting point, which was, well, what if it didn't happen? What if all that stuff that was supposed to happen, you saved the world, essentially? Well, what if it didn't happen? And you're like almost 50 years old now, and it still hasn't happened. And you're still just kind of toiling away and playing kind of shitty little gigs, and you don't have much money, and your marriages have been adversely affected, and just what does that feel like internally? And they liked that. They thought that was interesting. They were engaged by that. So then it took us, Ed and I, that is, it took us probably, a year and a half to come up with the story that would drive that narrative. And we would just periodically run something by Alex and Keanu, like, well, what do you think of this? No. What do you think of that? No. And then we ended up with this version of the story where, in order to get the song, the world-saving song, they basically, because now suddenly it's very pressing, like almost like the entire universe is going to collapse if they don't have it, like in 75 minutes. It's like time's run out. You've squandered 30 years. You got to have it now, say the great people in the future. We need it now. So they have the idea of like, well, we know we're going to write it at some point. Why don't we just go into the future and steal it from ourselves? So they just keep going into the future to try to, take it from themselves. But all these journeys into the future, interacting with themselves, don't go very well or don't go the way they want. And so the guys dug that. They liked that take on it. So we wrote it and we got all excited and we had a draft by 2011 and we went out and nobody wanted to do it. That's harsh. Nobody wanted to do it. There was like no interest at all. And we'd written it on spec, which means really MGM owned it. They owned it. We didn't own it. I mean, it's Hollywood. We didn't own it. They owned it. And so we had to go to them. We had one buyer, essentially, and they didn't want to do it. And they did, to their credit, allow us to take it to other buyers. They were like, well, we don't want to do it, and we do own it, but if you want to try other studios, you can. And then all the other studios passed too. Nobody wanted to do it. So, it just sat for years. And then I personally think John Wick probably did it, got everything moving. And by 16, we kind of had a deal and we got close, and then it fell apart. And then by 18, we had a real deal. And by 19, we made it.
Because, Keanu Reeves has definitely had a bit of a resurgence in recent years.
Oh, yeah,
So,
the Keanu songs.
The poll he would have would be pretty decent.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, there's no way that didn't play a big role.
So how common is it for the writers and stars to collaborate like that even before a studio's agreed to do it?
I don't think very. I don't think that's a very common thing, but Alex and Keanu have been playing, well, from a strictly practical standpoint, it couldn't happen without them, right?
Yeah.
So we had to run it by them. But I would say on a creative standpoint, these guys have been playing Bill and Ted. You know, they played Bill and Ted starting 1987. That's when we made the first movie. So
Yeah.
They have their own taste. So we viewed them as kind of like our partners in a way. Like Ed and I made them up, and then Alex and Keanu played them, and we were kind of a team, you know.
Right.
So we loved. I mean, these guys are smart. They're both really smart guys with really, really good instincts about comedy and instincts about comedy that overlap with ours. So it's easy. You know, it was never, ever like, oh, my God, those notes. You know, it was never like that with these guys. These guys are always like, right, that's smart. That's a good note, you know?
All right, cool. All right, so the movies then got signed, started, you got a director, got things, production moving?
Yeah, the director, Dean Pariseau, came on years earlier, like 2013, I think. Dean, agreed to direct it. And he had he directed Galaxy Quest. So he's a, very, very successful comedy director. But I think for quite a long time, the idea of Bill and Ted at 50, when it was never that big a hit, right? You know, we're not talking like a Batman movie or a Marvel movie. I mean, it was culty. It was a kind of a culty hit. And it didn't make that much money in anywhere people didn't speak English, you know, because comedy doesn't travel very well, generally speaking. And I don't think Bill and Ted did either. So they couldn't look at it that way. And then it was about, you know, as you heard from the way I described it, it's kind of about failure and they, you know, that's not exactly what studios do. It ends up being, it's a Bill and Ted movie. It's a comedy. It's, I think it's pretty funny, and it ends up being about, it's a happy ending. But I don't think they dug that too much either. Like, why would we do if they were going to do a Bill and Ted, and there was an interest in doing a Bill and Ted, they just wanted to reboot it with a couple of new teenage boys, you know, and just do it that way. That's what they were more inclined to do. Luckily, we got to do this. I'm really glad we did. It was very strange, 30 years later to bring these guys back.
Yeah. And then, of course, with the pandemic, I'm sure that interrupted plans on the release.
Well, it was going to have, just the theatrical, of course, like all other movies. But now how many actual movie theaters it's going to open in? I mean, I guess where movie theaters are open in the United States, I don't know, movie theaters open in Boise?
I believe so.
You can go see a movie. All right. So I guess it'll be in some movie theaters there and wherever else. They're not open in Portland, so nobody here will be able to go to a movie theater, but there will, it'll be in movie theaters where movie theaters are open, but the same day it'll also be on video so that you can watch it at home.
Which service?
I think all of them, I think Amazon, Apple, whatever. I think it'll just be everywhere.
Cool. Anywhere that you can pay for the movie right then?
Anywhere that you can pay for the movie, they will let you pay for the movie. Yes.
Smart.
I believe that's right. Yes.
All right. Very nice. All right. Well, I think we're out of time. Chris, it was a real pleasure getting to talk to you again.
Yeah, I agree. That was fun, Dustin.
And where can people find the book?
I mean, I think it's going to be in some bookstores. I believe it's going to be in Barnes and Noble, but Amazon's always easy, right? I don't know. Now I feel kind of weird recommending Amazon because Amazon rules the world. It's like recommending Facebook or something, you know. But
yeah,
that's how I buy books mainly, and I mean, but it is going to be in some bookstores. But I mean, Amazon would be the easiest.
All right. Well, I'll try and get some links down on it. And the name of the book again.
The Buddha's Story.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the interview. Chris is kind enough to be sending out some signed copies of The Buddha's Story for a giveaway. So get ready for this because it's going to be fun. Your challenge to get entered into this giveaway is to tell us who you think is the most horrible bum to be revered and or worshipped by a current religion. You need to identify who you are saying that is, as well as why. And this would apply to the obvious examples would be Jesus and the Buddha. So your chances of winning will be better if you pick somebody else, unless you do a really good explanation of why one of those two is the worst. But yeah, write that out and either record it using the SpeakPipe button on the website or shoot us an email at contact@atheistnomads.com or use the contact form on the website at atheistnomads.com/contact. If you want to support the show, you can find out how at atheistnomads.com/donate or at patreon.com/atheistnomads. Until next week, remember, not all those who wander are lost. Thank you for listening to another episode of Atheist Nomads. You can find show notes and contact information at atheistnomads.com. Follow us on Twitter at Atheist Nomads and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Atheist Nomads. Please subscribe to the show in iTunes, Stitcher, or your podcatcher of choice. And while you're there, feel free to leave us a review. Theme music is courtesy of Sturdy Fred. Until next time, this has been the Atheist Nomads.